Today is Sunday, July 27th, 2025. I am in Seattle visiting from Todos Santos, Mexico. I moved away from here a couple of months ago now, and I returned to attend the celebration of my brand new album created with Jacob Sawaczynski under our trip-hop duo name, Sirendia. I've been a professional musician working in the Seattle area, and over the years have done quite a lot of touring and performing in various states in the Pacific Northwest and down through Utah, Idaho, Montana, California. Took a trip to Santa Fe once too. And I began my professional life as a musician, really working musician, when I was 26 years old. And at the time I knew I was old in the industry, which is so hilarious to me now because, you know, here I am, a 58-year-old woman, and being 26 years old, that was amazing to be that youthful and young and with all the energy that I had back then. However, with my youthful energy, all I knew at that time was self-doubt. There was a lot of self-deprecation. I had grown to that age to believe all the stories that had been told to me, as we all as humans do. That's just the human experience, right? We grow up in our family pods, and whatever the stories are that our families have, that they continue to perpetuate and put upon us. And so regardless of who we are coming into this world, in our unique expressions and passions and desires that we are born with and want to develop and express, we're basically swimming upstream the entire time through our childhood, through adolescence, and well into adulthood. Because even if we, turn 18 and leave home, or maybe we leave home a little later, maybe we are kicked out of the home sooner than that, or we decide, I just can't take this, and we just walk out on our own earlier than 18, we still seem to, it's typical that we get into our adult years, past 18 years old, into our 20s, into our 30s, oftentimes into our 40s, still holding on to the stories or the projections that were put upon us all of those years through our development, squashing and squelching our passions and desires and unique expressions. I like to refer to these projections and stories as articles of clothing. If we use the metaphor of articles of clothing representing every story, every commentary that was ever made by a parent or a sibling or a friend, or, let's say an aunt or an uncle or anybody within our nucleus while we're young. Let's just say every person that puts something upon us, let's imagine that as an article of clothing of some sort. By the time we're 18 even, and let's say we don't have the ability to remove any of that by the time we're 18. Imagine how weighed down where we all are with every single article of clothing representing the comment or the repeated comments or the repeated stories, projections, the times that, well, why would you want to do that? Or who do you think you are to want to do that? Or who do you think you are to be able to do that? And, these stories, these things that are put upon us, these articles of clothing are so often repeated from parents who absolutely hated their own parents doing that to them, and then they turn around and do it to us. Even when they cringe. I remember my parents sometimes cringing that they were saying the same things to me. Like, they gave me this, however they would word it, but they would even express, well, I don't really want, to be the one to tell you this kind of thing. Yet they'll still repeat the same story. So think about all the weighed down articles of clothing we are wearing, metaphorically, by the time we're 18 years old. And if any of you listening are anything like I was a very obedient child. I wanted to do the right things. I would really take heed to what my parents wanted me to do. It was very rare that I would say, no, I just can't do that. And being an obedient child, an adolescent, I just took more and more articles of clothing on, and then including the criticisms or the doubting. Let's say so there was a lot of criticism and doubt put upon me, as if I weren't actually heeding my parents' desires to behave in certain ways, and there were more and more and more articles of clothing put upon me. So by the time I was 23, I was so weighed down. Well, I was married for the first time at the age 26, and I think back to that time, and wow, was I ever weighed down in so many outfits, in articles of clothing that I was wearing that had nothing to do with my authentic self. If I had been able to remove every one of those articles of clothing put upon me, fabric thrown over me, or that I would just continue to wrap up in safety, if I had been able to remove any of those, I would have been, smooth sailing at that point. But no, that didn't happen. And I just continued to put on more and more. And then, the more relationships I garnered over the years, whether they were, my first marriage or friends that I had, then knew me as the person with all of those articles of clothing. So my authentic self wasn't even visible to anyone getting to know me at that point in my life. And I had come to believe that I was all of those things, that I was all of those articles of clothing, and I didn't know how to allow my authentic, fresh, born self express through all of those layers. To be continued.